Send in the humans, I guess. It has been nearly 500 years since the war between the HTAC systems alliance the Nakati Imperium began. 500 years of bloody back and forth over the frontier systems, now rendered nearly inhabitable due to constant warfare. Nobody remembers how or even why it started. Popular theories range from either side, simply wanting to expand their respective territory, to threats and assassination attempts on the other's leadership. Any record of the time was lost during the opening stages when both sides attacked the other with computer viruses to disable their respective economy. It didn't work. The Alliance and the Imperium were technologically nearly on the same level, and when one developed a new technology, it was not long before it was either stolen by the other side, or it was captured in battle and reverse engineered. It had gotten to the point where the level of technology on both sides was so high that scientists and inventors were struggling to improve on anything. Alliance Council meeting? Are you insane? The ex-Othon Council members shouted at the Scythinian Council member. They will be slaughtered like vermin. I have to agree with my fellow council member there. Another council member, this one from Naban, stated, the human fleet, large as it is far too technologically inferior to anything we or the enemy have at our disposal. Would you all shut up already and listen to the rest of the information? The human council member, a former general, called out. Humans! They were the most recent species to join the Alliance, only having joined some 40 years prior. Though the only reason they joined the Alliance and not the Imperium or any other faction was that the Alliance was the only faction that did not have a system of forced slavery in motion. The system of slavery that the Alliance has in place is purely one where the enslaved is working of their debts to someone else, and once that debt is paid, the slave is freed and has legitimate work experience on their CV, as the humans call it. In addition, to prevent any extreme exploitation and appalling treatment, the slaves are closely monitored by council agents. Humanity at that point had only begun to colonize its neighboring star systems. With the help of the Alliance, their technology made leaps and bounds, though they were not at a level where the Alliance thought they would be useful in war. Mainly because the humans seemed to detest the idea of solely relying on energy and plasma-based weaponry across all their armed forces. Though their shielding tech is considerable and their hyperdrives are in some ways superior to the FTL drives the Alliance uses, not necessarily faster, but easier to produce and maintain. For goodness sake, they still used kinetic projectile weapons, which were phased out millennia ago due to modern armor being able to withstand those ordnances. Sure, it worked, but why stick to something so primitive when something better and more effective exists? The Scythinian council member nodded to his colleague in gratitude, the human's rough attitude allowing him to continue talking. The humans have a saying, take a step back and look at the big picture. It pains me to say it, but my recent meeting with the human government has brought to light several factors that none of us have known about or even considered. He took a deep breath. The humans have a long-standing history of martial prowess. They are new to the galactic stage and thus have a different perspective than what is standard amongst the galactic communities. In the last 10 years, they have analyzed every battle, every tactic used and every strategy employed by both our forces and that of the Imperium that we have on record. They have come up with hundreds of different strategies that we never even thought of in the last month alone. Their combat doctrine differs greatly from our own. He looked around the Great Hall, looking at the dozens of individuals staring right back. Remember that one time we invited the humans to a war game? How one single human division managed to hold off against 4 of our divisions, despite the disparity in technology. How they held the line whilst their allies fled the field. Several council members either flinched or grimaced at the reminder. It had been a slaughter. Oh, those guys were fresh trainees, not our veteran stock. The human commented, if our fresh trainees are capable of doing all that, what's stopping you all from accepting the Scythinian council member's proposal? Why not let us prove our mettle? The man lit his cigarette. Unless you don't want us to show how inadequate your military really is. Even if we call on you now, it will take months or even years until... Another council member began. 3 weeks. The human interrupted him, stunning everyone, even the Scythinian council member. In 3 weeks, we will have a fleet ready for departure. That fast enough for y'all? Numbly, the council member sat down. Good. I gotta go make a call. See you in a bit, the human said, extinguishing his cigarette on his boot, and left towards the communication center. All right, who is going to support the humans? The Exothon council member asked. The human was so insane that it was contagious. 3 weeks? That was absolutely insane. 2 years later, humanity's entry into the war wrought a storm all across the galaxy. Why wouldn't it? It took the humans around 2 months to breach the defenses of one of the most heavily defended cities on one of the frontier planets. Another month for them to capture its spaceport. And then another 2 weeks to sort through all the soldiers who gave up after their lifeline was severed. All the while, the human fleet fought for dominance, and it became clear why that human council member was so insane. No, so sure of the odds. Firstly, the humans deployed a total of 100 Army and Marine Corps divisions, each containing at least 15,000 to 20,000 combat personnel, not including support staff, armor, artillery, air force, logistics, etc. Secondly, the human fleet did not fire from a distance. Even they admit that their long-range capabilities are a tad lacking. Instead, they are insane enough to use their hyperdrives to land their ships right in between the Imperium's warships, and proceeded to deliver literal hell upon the Imperial Navy. Thirdly, what no one, other than the humans and maybe a few other young species, realized was that over the centuries following the abandonment of kinetic weapons in favor for energy-based weapons, the armor that had at one point been impervious to any sort of small kinetic fire had slowly been replaced by armor specifically designed for energy weapons. Of course, the current line of armor was resistant to kinetics, but that was because of fragmentation from artillery explosions. This same problem also befell the ships in the galaxy's navies. Metal giving way to energy-resistant ceramic composites that turned out to be rather brittle to the mass-accelerated cannon rounds the humans employ for the secondary armaments on anything bigger than a light cruiser. Fourth, the humans are truly insane. On several occasions, their units had been surrounded by Imperial forces. Standard procedure dictates that they ought to surrender. Try telling that to a human, especially one from Ireland who just had his whiskey flask shot out of his hand. That particular battle was at most a Pyrrhic victory for the Imperium. In the last 2 years, the former frontier systems had become silent, if one were to ignore the terraforming vessels approaching and leaving the systems, that is. The irony. The Imperium and the Alliance had invested so much energy and resources into those frontier systems that every one of their worlds, except for the numerous homeworlds, had little to nothing in the way of a defensive installation. Which leads to the last little detail the humans made known. Because whilst the galaxy was distracted by the fireworks, as the humans called it, small nimble human flotillas began raiding systems deep within Imperium space, even momentarily appearing above the Imperium capital, destroying an orbital shipyard, then disappearing. Now, the Imperium and the Alliance met to discuss terms, with the former trying desperately to ban the humans' use of their kinetic weapons. The human representatives just laughed, before stating, "Hey, our guns work just fine. It's you guys who had forgotten how effective they can be. Why change something that works after all?"